Prince William did not raise his voice when the photographs were placed on the mahogany desk in front of him, and that precise silence was what terrified every palace official standing in the room. 6 high-resolution security images, 1 gold-embossed invitation card, 42 high-profile names, and 1 tiny handwritten note tucked into the bottom right corner. William pushed his chair back, looked directly at the senior equerry, and asked the single question nobody in that room had the courage to answer. Who told Laura she could ignore a direct order from the king? The silence that followed was not born of confusion or surprise. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of people who already knew the truth, but were terrified of saying it out loud. Before William could force a confession out of anyone, the heavy double doors opened. Queen Camilla walked into the room, took one look at the photographs spread across the blotter, and delivered a single sentence that turned a quiet family dispute into an open war over the future of the crown. My daughter did nothing wrong. William did not flinch. He simply picked up the gold-embossed invitation, slid it slowly across the polished wood until it rested against her hand, and pointed directly at the raised royal crest. Before we unpack every hidden detail of this explosive showdown and reveal who was truly pulling the strings behind the scenes, please take a quick moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep bringing you these deep, meticulously researched looks behind the palace walls into the silent power struggles that shape the modern monarchy. To understand why that single gold crest caused sheer panic inside Windsor Castle, you have to go back 36 hours to an official email that Laura Lopes was never supposed to disregard. It arrived in her office inbox shortly after 7 in the morning. The wording was exceptionally polite, almost painfully formal, but its core message was an absolute blockade. A private art reception that Laura had been quietly organizing was strictly forbidden from taking place inside the historic East Terrace rooms at Windsor. No royal insignia could appear on any printed materials. No commercial photographers were permitted past the security gates. No corporate sponsors could be attached to the residence. The instruction was signed off as final, not a draft for negotiation, not a soft request, but an absolute prohibition. Laura's private office received the message. Palace servers logged that the email had been opened and read, yet no written confirmation or reply was ever sent back. In ordinary circumstances, that lack of response would have been logged as minor administrative rudeness. What happened 24 hours later transformed it into a full-scale security breach. Shortly after 8 o'clock the following morning, 2 unmarked delivery vans pulled up to the secured service entrance of Windsor Castle. They were loaded with high-end lighting rigs, crates of vintage champagne, temporary gallery display walls, elaborate floral arrangements, and stacks of customized gift bags. But when security personnel requested standard vendor authorization permits, the drivers had none to present. Instead, the delivery manifest carried a single handwritten phrase, "Private family delivery for the Queen." Inside the royal household, those 6 words act like a master key. They bypass standard procurement checks, bypass event logging, and bypass central scheduling. The security team waved the first vehicle through the gate. The second vehicle was only stopped because a heavy wooden crate slipped on the loading ramp, splitting open against the stone pavement. When the guards bent down to gather the scattered contents, they didn't find art supplies or floral vases. They found hundreds of freshly printed invitation cards. Thick cream cardstock, hand-gilded edges, raised lettering, and sitting prominently directly above Laura Lopes' name was the official royal crown, the exact sacred emblem she had been explicitly forbidden from using. Why would anyone proceed to print and distribute gold-embossed invitations featuring the royal crown after receiving a binding legal prohibition against doing so? That was the exact question placed on Prince William's desk at 8:17 the following morning. But as William examined the evidence, he discovered an even more alarming detail. The original event design had actually been reviewed and approved weeks earlier. That initial layout had been entirely unproblematic, clean, elegant, private, with zero mention of the royal family, zero use of royal symbols, and no implication that the monarchy endorsed the event. The royal crown had been added after the formal warning had been delivered. Someone had deliberately altered the design file, sent it to a high-security engraver, and rushed the printing. William placed the two versions side by side on his desk. Beneath Laura's name on the new invitation, 4 additional words had been carefully etched, by gracious royal permission. There was only one massive problem. No permission had ever been granted. Not by Prince William, not by the Lord Chamberlain's office, and not by the King's private secretary. Yet 42 of the most powerful people in the art and business worlds had already received these cards. Art collectors, international gallery owners, ultra-wealthy patrons, 2 former cabinet ministers, and several high net worth individuals whose presence immediately raised alarms among palace officials. This was no longer a modest gathering for a private citizen. It looked like an official, state-sanctioned royal gala. William immediately issued an absolute order: cancel the event, clear the courtyard, and turn the delivery vans away. That should have been the end of the matter. It wasn't, because Laura Lopez was already inside Windsor Castle. She had entered through a secluded family access point shortly before 9 in the morning, holding a sleek blue leather folder, and accompanied by 3 individuals who were not listed on any approved security registry. When a senior estate manager intercepted her in the grand corridor and politely informed her that the reception had been officially revoked, Laura did not raise her voice. She did not argue or demand to see a supervisor. She simply opened the blue folder, retrieved a single sheet of paper, and delivered a calm, 6-word response: "I have authority to continue." The manager read the document, lowered his head, and stepped aside. Word of that mystery document spread through the corridors of Windsor faster than an official dispatch. Within minutes, senior aides were making emergency calls between Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, trying to identify who had authorized the bypass. Nobody could identify the signature at the bottom of the page, but the final sentence was unmistakable: "Please provide Mrs. Lopes with all reasonable assistance." The paper had not been issued by the King's private office. It originated from the Queen's private household. That distinction may sound like minor palace bureaucracy to an outsider, but internally, it was an explosive breach of constitutional protocol. While Queen Camilla maintains her own staff, her own calendar, and her own charitable initiatives, her household possesses zero legal authority to override an order issued in the name of the sovereign, especially inside a royal residence. William ordered the physical paper to be brought to his office immediately. It never arrived. By the time security personnel reached the East Terrace rooms, the document had been removed from Laura's blue folder. It had completely vanished. This was no longer a misunderstanding over party invitations. It was a deliberate destruction of evidence inside a secure royal palace. William immediately dropped all diplomatic pretenses. He demanded full electronic access logs, security gate footage, written staff statements, and every email thread connected to the planning of the event. Then, he issued one final, strict directive: under no circumstances was Queen Camilla to be alerted to the ongoing investigation. She found out anyway. By 10:30, the Queen had abruptly cancelled her private morning schedule and was traveling at high speed toward Windsor Castle. When word reached William that Camilla was demanding an urgent family conversation, his response was bone-chillingly cold: "Tell her this is no longer a family matter." When Camilla arrived, she was visibly furious, not because an unauthorized event had taken place, but because her daughter had been challenged by palace security. "My daughter is not a criminal," she reportedly stated. William's response was razor sharp. Then, she should have no trouble producing the document she used to override the King's security team. Camilla insisted that no secret document existed. In response, William slid a signed security statement across the table. One manager had read the authorization. 2 security guards had discussed it. Laura had used it to march past a restricted checkpoint, yet the physical paper was gone. Camilla read the statement twice, set it down, and uttered the line that transformed William's controlled anger into absolute fury. Perhaps your staff misunderstood what they saw. Your staff. Not palace staff. Not the king's staff. Your staff. William picked up on the division instantly. He leaned across the table, his voice dead silent. These people serve the crown. Camilla didn't back down. She met his gaze and delivered a 3-word reply that sent shockwaves through the room. For now. That single phrase changed everything. This was no longer a disagreement over champagne, guest lists, or gallery displays. It was an open, ruthless conflict over who held real power inside the house and whose authority would survive when the current reign came to an end. Yet the most dangerous element of the entire setup was still hidden deep within Laura's 42-person guest list. Tucked near the bottom was a name that had been added manually in dark ink, a senior corporate property solicitor who specialized in international art trusts, high-value asset transfers, and tax-exempt foundations. Why was a high-stakes asset lawyer invited to a casual private art reception? William circled the name in red ink and ordered an immediate background check. What came back 20 minutes later caused him to break off the meeting with Camilla and walk directly toward the East Terrace rooms. When William pushed open the heavy doors, he found event contractors actively dismantling display screens while Laura stood near the grand fireplace, speaking in hushed tones with an organizer. Resting on a velvet-covered table behind her were 12 heavily gilded, framed paintings that did not appear on any approved inventory list. William walked past Laura without saying a word and examined the backing labels. 11 of the works belonged to private gallery lenders. The 12th frame carried no lender name at all. It featured only 3 typed words: Private Royal Collection. That label represented a massive violation of institutional protocol. The Royal Collection is not a personal vanity chest to be borrowed for private events. Items are catalogued, insured, conserved, and displayed under strict statutory rules. Yet this specific painting had no movement ticket, no transit log, and no clearance from the Royal Collection Trust. How had a priceless, unlisted painting left the secure vault and arrived inside a private event room? Laura claimed she assumed it had been cleared by palace staff. The event organizer claimed it had arrived in the Queen's private delivery van. The Queen's staff denied ever touching it. 3 explanations, completely contradicting one another. Then, William looked behind the frame. Attached to the lower corner of the wood was a tiny, freshly printed paper tag. It wasn't an archival tracking tag. It was a formal valuation assessment tag. Someone wasn't setting up this painting for an artistic viewing. Someone was establishing its current market value for an immediate transfer of ownership. That was the exact moment Prince William lost his composure. He ordered security to seal every door in the room. Nobody was permitted to leave, and no folders, electronic devices, or papers were to be removed until ownership of the physical painting was established. Laura turned to him, her voice rising. "You cannot detain people at a private family event." William looked around the half-dismantled gallery and replied, "This stopped being a family event the second someone printed the king's crown on those invitations." Cornered, Laura revealed her final defense. She claimed the painting did not belong to the royal collection at all. She asserted that it had been given directly to her mother, Queen Camilla, as a personal gift. William looked at her coldly. Given by whom? Laura hesitated, and that brief pause revealed the answer before she even spoke. King Charles. The entire confrontation shifted instantly. If King Charles had legally gifted the painting to Camilla, then Laura might have had the right to display it. But if he hadn't, then someone inside the Queen's inner circle was using the king's authority to quietly extract irreplaceable assets out of the royal collection. There was only one way to resolve the truth. King Charles had to be questioned directly. Camilla attempted to block the inquiry, claiming the king was dealing with pressing state matters, that the painting was trivial, and that William was turning a minor family courtesy into a constitutional crisis. William ignored her entirely. He dispatched an emergency request directly to the king's private secretary, demanding Charles's immediate presence at Windsor. Seeing that William was unrelenting, Camilla suddenly stopped arguing. She exchanged a tense look with Laura, whose eyes drifted toward the blue leather folder resting on a side table. William noticed the interaction immediately. He walked over, picked up the folder, and unceremoniously dumped its contents across the table. Outspilled guest biographies, catering invoices, seating arrangements, and insurance certificates, but no authorization letter. Then, a single folded document slipped out from a hidden interior lining. It wasn't the mystery security pass. It was something far larger, a master strategic draft titled The Queen's Family Cultural Initiative.